Admiral Dae-ho Kim stood at the viewing deck of Mars Defense Station, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. The red planet's surface stretched out below, dotted with the gleaming domes of human colonies. At 62, he had seen humanity reach for the stars and succeed beyond anyone's dreams. But today, something felt wrong. "Admiral, incoming emergency transmission," his AI assistant buzzed in his ear. "It's from Horizon Station." A smile touched his lips. His daughter Hannah was leading a breakthrough study on dark matter at the research station near Neptune. She had promised to call today, but this was earlier than expected. The holographic screen flickered to life, but instead of Hannah's familiar face, he saw chaos. Warning lights flashed in the background. Screams echoed through the transmission. "This is Dr. Lee from Horizon Station. We are under attack. Unknown vessels. They're Nerix ships. They've broken the peace treaty. Our shields are fail." The transmission cut off with a burst of static. Dae-ho's blood ran cold. The Nerix were supposed to be allies. For 5 years, they had shared technology, traded resources, and built what everyone thought was a lasting peace. "Get me visual on Horizon Station. Now," he barked. The view screen shifted to a long-range feed. 3 massive Nerix warships, their crystal-like hulls gleaming in the distant sunlight, surrounded the research station. Before Dae-ho could issue any orders, bright beams of energy lanced out from the alien ships. Horizon Station, home to 1,500 scientists and their families, erupted in a massive explosion. The flash was so bright that the video feed had to adjust. When it cleared, nothing remained but floating debris. Dae-ho stood frozen. Hannah had been there. His only child, his brilliant daughter who had followed her mother's footsteps into science instead of his military path. Now she was gone. "Sir," his second-in-command spoke softly beside him. "We're getting reports. The Nerix ships have already jumped to FTL. They're gone." The Admiral's fingers dug into the metal railing until his knuckles turned white. "Get me Earth Command. And send out an alert to all our ships in the system. Full combat status." Over the next 24 hours, Earth tried everything. They sent messages to the Nerix homeworld. They called for emergency meetings. They demanded explanations. The Nerix responded with silence. In his private quarters that night, Dae-ho looked at the last photo taken of Hannah. She was smiling, holding up her latest research award. The frame shook in his trembling hands. "Admiral," his AI chimed again. "Earth Council is requesting your presence. They're voting on our response to the attack." Dae-ho placed the photo down carefully. When he looked up, his eyes had changed. The warm brown had turned to steel. "Tell them I'm on my way," he said, his voice steady. "And send a message to Captain J1 Park of the Thunderhawk. Tell her to ready her ship." As he walked through the station's corridors, crew members stopped and saluted. They had all heard about Horizon Station. Many had lost friends or family. In their eyes, he saw the same thing he felt in his heart: rage. The Nerix had crossed a line. They had mistaken humanity's peaceful intentions for weakness. Soon, they would learn just how wrong they were. Earth's response would not be a mere retaliation. It would be a lesson written in fire across the stars, a reminder to any species that might think of humanity as easy prey. The war was about to begin, and Admiral Dae-ho Kim would lead humanity's fleet on the Warpath. Captain J1 Park paced the bridge of the UES Thunderhawk, reading the emergency orders for the 5th time. The massive view screen showed dozens of human warships dropping out of FTL around Mars, their engine trails burning bright against the black of space. "Status report," she called out, her voice firm despite her racing heart. Lieutenant Yu-Jin Lee looked up from her weapons console. 37 ships have arrived so far, Captain. More appearing every hour. The Vengeance just dropped out of FTL. You need to see this." The screen shifted to show a ship unlike any other in the human fleet. The Vengeance was darker than space itself, its hull covered in strange patterns that seemed to swallow light. It was Earth's newest warship, rushed from the secret shipyards of Titan for this very moment. They really did it, Jai-1 whispered. They built a perfect predator. The bridge crew watched in awe as the prototype vessel moved into formation. Its size made the other warships look like toys in comparison. "Message from Admiral Kim," announced the communications officer. "All ship captains to Mars Defense Station for immediate briefing." An hour later, Jai-1 sat in the station's main briefing room with 20 other captains. The room fell silent as Admiral Kim walked in. Everyone had heard about his daughter on Horizon Station. "The Nareks think they know us," the Admiral began, his voice steady. "They think they understand human nature because we showed them our peaceful side. Today they learn about our other side." He pressed a button, and a hologram filled the room. Lieutenant Yu-Jin Lee stood up from her seat and walked to the front. At 28, she was young for her rank, but her genius with weapons systems was legendary. "I've developed new targeting algorithms for our plasma cannons," she explained, pointing to complex diagrams. "The Narek ships are tough, but their crystal hulls have a weakness. Hit them at exactly the right frequency, and they shatter like glass." The captains leaned forward as she demonstrated the new firing patterns. Hope began to replace the fear in their eyes. "But that's not all," Admiral Kim continued. He gestured to the image of the Vengeance. "This ship carries weapons the Nareks cannot imagine, because they never bother to ask what humans do when we're afraid. When we're angry, when we're pushed too far." Jai-1 felt a chill run down her spine. She had never heard the Admiral speak like this. "The Thunderhawk will lead the first strike," he announced. "Captain Park, your ship has the best crew and the newest upgrades. You'll test Lieutenant Lee's targeting systems in real combat." Jai-1 stood and saluted. "We won't let you down, sir." Back on the Thunderhawk, Jai-1 watched as her crew prepared for war. Engineers installed the new targeting systems. Gunners ran combat drills. In the mess hall, she overheard crew members sharing stories about friends lost on Horizon Station. "Captain," Lieutenant Lee called from her station, "the new systems are online, but I found something else." She pulled up a scan of the Narek ships that had attacked Horizon. "Look at their flight path. They didn't choose that station at random. They knew exactly what they were targeting." Jai-1's eyes narrowed. "You mean they knew about Dr. Haina Kim's research?" "Yes, they weren't just killing humans. They were trying to stop us from making a specific breakthrough." The captain looked out at the gathered fleet, at the deadly shape of the Vengeance lurking in the distance. The Nareks had made 3 mistakes. They had attacked civilians. They had killed the Admiral's daughter. And they had underestimated humanity's response. "Sound battle stations," Jai-1 ordered. "It's time to show them what happens when you cross the line." Commander Sun Mi-Kang's stealth ship drifted silently through space, its systems running dark. Her small crew watched their screens with held breath as they approached the first Narek's outpost. After 2 weeks of careful planning, the time had come for humanity's response. "Target in visual range," whispered Tactical Officer Tadwan Choi. The massive Narek station floated ahead, its crystal surfaces reflecting starlight. More importantly, they could see the tall communication relay towers extending from its sides. Sun Mi touched her earpiece. "Command, this is Ghost Lead. We have eyes on the target. Sending visual data now." Back on the Thunderhawk, Captain G1 Park and Lieutenant Yu-Jin Lee studied the incoming footage. The Narek station was even bigger than their intelligence had suggested. "Look at those relay towers." Yu-Jin pointed at the screen. "They're pure crystal, just like their ships. Our new targeting system will tear them apart." Jai-1 nodded and opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships prepare for synchronized jump. Ghostblade has given us the coordinates." In the darkness of space, Sun Mi's team watched as multiple flashpoints appeared. The human fleet dropped out of FTL in perfect formation. The Thunderhawk led from the center, with the massive vengeance floating behind like a dark shadow. They have no idea what's coming, Taiwan said, checking his readings. Their shields are at minimum power. The Nerix had grown too confident. They didn't expect humans to strike back so boldly. They were wrong. Ghost Lead, clear the area. Jaiwan's voice came through the comm. We're starting the light show. Sun Li's ship pulled back just as Lieutenant Li's new targeting system came online. The fleet's plasma cannons hummed with power, adjusted to the exact frequency needed to shatter crystal. Fire, ordered Jaiwan. The space around the Nerix station lit up as dozens of plasma beams struck simultaneously. The crystal relay towers didn't just break. They exploded into thousands of glittering pieces. The station's defenses tried to respond, but without their communication network, they fell into chaos. Second target acquired, announced Eugene. The fleet moved as one, jumping to their next target. Another Nerix outpost faced the same fate, its crystal structures unable to withstand the precisely tuned attacks. On the third jump, however, things changed. Multiple hostile ships detected. Taiwan's voice crackled through the comm. They were waiting for us. Sun Mi's stealth ship caught the whole scene on their cameras. 5 Nerix warships emerged from behind a small moon, their weapons charging. They may have been waiting, Jaiwan said calmly, but we were counting on it. She turned to her crew. Signal the vengeance. It's time to show them our new toy. The massive black ship moved forward. Its strange hull seemed to bend the light around it as panels opened along its sides. What happened next made even the human crews stare in awe. The vengeance released a wave of energy unlike anything seen before. When it hit the Nerix ships, their crystal hulls didn't just shatter. They turned to dust. By the stars, Sun Mi whispered, watching through her ship's cameras. What did we just do? In the silence that followed, Admiral Kim's voice came through all channels. Send the footage to their homeworld. Let them see what happens when they attack our people. This was just the first strike. There will be more. The human fleet regrouped, their first mission successful. But everyone knew this was just the beginning. The Nerix would respond with everything they had. As Sun Mi's stealth ship rejoined the fleet, she looked at the debris floating where 3 Nerix outposts had been. The message was clear. Humanity wasn't just fighting back. They were hunting. And they were very, very good at it. The alarms on Europa Defense Base screamed as hundreds of Nerix ships filled the screens. Chief Engineer Do Hyun Ryu ran through the crowded corridors, his tablet showing critical shield readings. They're everywhere, someone shouted. Through the base's windows, the space above Jupiter's moon lit up with enemy ships. Their crystal hulls glowed with an angry red light, a new modification to resist human weapons. They learned from our attacks, Do Hyun said into his comm unit. Their crystals are vibrating at changing frequencies. Our targeting systems can't lock on. In orbit above Europa, Captain J1 Park watched the massive Nerix fleet approach. The Thunderhawk's crew worked frantically at their stations. This wasn't a simple revenge attack. This was an overwhelming force meant to crush humanity's defenses. Report, Jaiwan demanded. Lieutenant Eugene Li's fingers flew over her console. At least 300 ships, Captain. They've adapted their shields. And she paused, her face pale. They're using our own people against us. The screen showed the terrible truth. The Nerix had captured human ships during their raids. Now these ships flew at the front of their fleet, forced to act as living shields. They think this will stop us. Admiral Kim's voice came through the command channel. They think we won't fire on our own ships to protect Earth. Sir, Jaiwan said quietly, there could be survivors on those ships. I know, Captain. And so do the Nerix. That's why they did this. To show us what they learned about humanity. That we care. Down on Europa base, Do Hyun had an idea. He ran to the main shield generator, his hand shaking as he rewired connections. This is Chief Engineer Ryu. on modifying our shield frequency to match their crystal vibrations. If I'm right, we can turn their defense into a weapon. The first wave of Narek ships opened fire. The shots hit Europa's shields, but instead of breaking through, something strange happened. The shield caught the energy and sent it bouncing back, amplified by Duhyun's modifications. 3 Narek ships shattered instantly. Their own attack frequency, reflected back at them, tore through their crystal hulls. "It works," Duhyun shouted. "Quick, send these modifications to the fleet." Above, the Thunderhawk's shields changed as they received the new code. More Narek ships fell as their attacks backfired, but they kept coming, wave after wave, willing to sacrifice ships to break through. They're not just angry, Yu-Jin realized, watching the enemy movements. They're scared. Look how desperate these attacks are. Jai-Won understood suddenly. They saw our technology advancing. The Vengeance, our targeting systems, these shield modifications, they attacked Horizon Station because they feared what we'd become. The battle raged for hours. The space around Europa filled with crystal debris as more Narek ships fell. But humanity's forces took heavy damage too. 5 human ships were destroyed. Europa base's shields were failing. Then the Vengeance arrived. It moved through the battlefield like a dark shark, its mysterious weapons tearing through enemy ships. The Narek's fleet began to retreat, but not before launching one final attack at Europa base. "Shields at 2%. Duhyun yelled. "We can't take another hit." The entire base shook. Warning lights flashed everywhere, but the shields held, barely. Duhyun's modifications had saved thousands of lives. As the enemy fleet jumped away, Admiral Kim's message reached all stations. They thought they could break us. Instead, they made us stronger. But this isn't over. They'll be back with even larger numbers. We need to be ready. The battle for Europa had ended, but the war was entering a new phase. Humanity had proved it could stand against the Nareks. Now they needed to prove they could win. Dr. Min Hee-song hadn't slept in 3 days. She stood in her lab aboard the Thunderhawk, staring at holographic displays filled with quantum calculations. Something about the Narek's attacks had been bothering her, and now she knew why. "Captain Park," she called through the comm. "I need you in the lab immediately." Jai-Won arrived to find Min-Hee surrounded by floating numbers and diagrams. The scientist's eyes were bright with excitement despite her exhaustion. "Look at this," Min-Hee pointed to a pattern of waves. "The Narek ships don't just use crystal technology. They use quantum crystal networks. Each ship is connected to every other ship. That's why they fight so well together." "Can we use this against them?" Jai-Won asked. "Better." Min-Hee smiled. "I can build a targeting system that follows these quantum links. If we hit one ship, we can hit them all." Before they could discuss further, a new voice broke through the ship's speakers. It was Hyunwoo Ba, their youngest and best pilot, who was leading a scouting mission in the Kuiper Belt. "Captain, you need to see this." His voice crackled with static. "We found something out here. Something big." The Thunderhawk jumped to Hyunwoo's location at the edge of the solar system. What they saw made everyone on the bridge stop breathing. A massive structure floated among the ice and rocks. It was clearly artificial, but it wasn't Narek's technology. It looked ancient, its surface covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow faintly. "It's some kind of defense platform," Hyunwoo reported from his scout ship. "And it's still active." Dr. Min-Hee's fingers flew over her tablet as she scanned the structure. "This is incredible. The technology. It's like nothing we've seen before. But..." She paused, her eyes widening. "Some of these patterns match the crystal technology the Nareks use. They didn't invent it. They found it, just like we did." Captain Park immediately contacted Admiral Kim. Within hours, a small fleet gathered around the ancient platform. Min-Hee led a team inside, their footsteps echoing through corridors that hadn't seen life in thousands of years. "The controls respond to human touch," she reported excitedly. It's like it was waiting for us. In the platform's control center, they found something even more surprising. The walls showed star maps, battle plans, and most importantly, weaknesses in crystal-based technology. Whoever built this, He explained to the gathered officers, they fought an enemy that used crystal ships, just like the Nareks. For the next 2 days, teams worked around the clock. They combined He's quantum targeting system with the ancient platform's knowledge. Hyunwoo flew dangerous missions through the asteroid field, bringing in more ships and equipment. Then they got the news they were dreading. The Nareks had launched their biggest attack yet. 1,000 ships were heading toward Earth. We're not ready. One of the engineers shouted. We need more time. No, Hyunwoo said firmly. We do this now. I'll fly the first test mission myself. Captain Park watched as their youngest pilot took off in a fighter equipped with the new combined technology. The small ship looked tiny against the backdrop of space. Hyunwoo flew straight into the densest part of the asteroid field, testing the targeting system. His ship moved like it was dancing, each turn perfect, each shot exact. The quantum targeting tracked his movement through space in ways that seemed impossible. It works, he shouted. The targeting is perfect. And there's more. I can see their quantum networks, all of them. We can track every Narek ship in the galaxy. Admiral Kim's voice came through all channels. This is it. The game has changed. Signal all ships. We're taking the fight to them. The Nareks thought they could break humanity. Instead, they led us to exactly what we needed to defeat them. The war wasn't over, but for the first time since the destruction of Horizon Station, humanity had more than hope. They had a way to win. The combined human fleet dropped out of FTL near Proxima Centauri, their engines glowing against the red dwarf star. Admiral Daeho Kim stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, watching as over 500 ships moved into attack formation. Lieutenant Jin Han sat at her communications station, her eyes closed as she listened through her headset. After weeks of study, she had finally cracked the Narek's battle language. Sir, she called out, I'm picking up their transmissions. They're panicking. They never expected us to find their home system so quickly. The Admiral nodded. The quantum tracking system had worked perfectly, leading them straight to the heart of Narek space. On his command screen, he could see Captain Jae-won Park's Thunderhawk moving into position, along with Hyunwoo Ba's fighter squadron. All ships, battle stations, he ordered. His voice was calm, but his hands gripped the command rail tightly. Somewhere ahead was the Narek's commander who had ordered the attack on Horizon Station, who had killed his daughter. The enemy fleet appeared suddenly, their crystal ships emerging from behind planets and moons. There were thousands of them, far more than human intelligence had expected. They've gathered every ship they have. Jae-won's voice came through the comm. This is their entire fleet. Good, Admiral Kim replied. Then this ends today. Dr. Min-hee, are you ready? In her lab aboard the Thunderhawk, Min-hee checked her quantum targeting controls one last time. Ready, sir. The ancient platform's technology is fully integrated. One shot will cascade through their entire network. The space between the fleets lit up as the battle began. The Nareks attacked first, their crystal ships firing in perfect unison. But humanity was ready. Activate quantum shields, Kim ordered. The human fleet's shields flared with new energy, using Do Hyun-ryu's modifications combined with the ancient technology. The Narek's weapons bounced harmlessly away. Fighter Squadron Alpha, engage, Jae-won commanded. Hyunwoo led his fighters forward, their small ships moving with impossible precision thanks to the quantum targeting. They slipped through gaps in the Narek's formation, hitting critical points that Min-hee's system had identified. Their network is destabilizing, Jinna reported, listening to the panicked Narek's communications. They can't coordinate their attacks. The battle raged for hours. The space around Proxima Centauri filled with shattered crystal and burning metal. Both sides took heavy losses, but the human fleet pressed forward, pushing closer to the Nerix homeworld. Then came the moment they had waited for. Jinnah's translation system caught a specific transmission. "Admiral, I found him. The Nerix Supreme Commander. He's on the crystal ship at their center." Kim looked at the massive crystal vessel directing the enemy fleet. This was the one. The ship that had ordered his daughter's death. "All ships, clear a path to their command vessel," he ordered. "Dr. Minhee, prepare the quantum cascade. Captain Park, move the Thunderhawk into position." The human fleet split apart like an opening flower, creating a clear line of fire. The Vengeance moved forward, its dark hull absorbing nearby light. "For Horizon," Kim said quietly. "Fire." The shot that the Vengeance fired looked small, almost insignificant, but as it struck the Nerix command ship, something amazing happened. The quantum cascade began, spreading through their crystal network like cracks in ice. Ship after ship lost power as the cascade moved through their connected systems. Their perfect formation fell apart. Their weapons went dead. "Sir," Jinnah called out, her voice filled with emotion. "They're sending a surrender signal. On all frequencies, in every language they know." Admiral Kim watched as the mighty Nerix fleet hung powerless in space. Humanity had won, but as he looked at the destruction around him, he felt no joy. Only a deep certainty that his daughter would have wanted this victory to mean something more than just revenge. "Send our response," he ordered. "Tell them we accept their surrender, and that we need to talk about the future." 3 months after the Battle of Proxima Centauri, Earth had changed. The skies above every major city showed the results of humanity's victory. Nerix crystal ships now flew alongside human vessels, their crews working together to rebuild what was broken. Admiral Daeho Kim stood in the new memorial garden on Mars, where a crystal monument rose into the red sky. The names of every person lost on Horizon Station were carved into its surface, the crystal catching the sunlight just as the Nerix ships once did. "It's beautiful," Captain Jaiwon Park said, walking up beside him. "Dr. Hannah would have loved the science behind how it glows." Kim touched his daughter's name on the crystal. Yes, she would have taken it apart to study it. For the first time in months, he smiled. Around them, families of the Horizon victims gathered for the official memorial ceremony. Lieutenant Yu Jin Lee had set up special lighting that made the crystal monument shine with different colors, each representing a different field of science that the station had studied. Dr. Min Hee-song stood at a podium, preparing to speak. Her discovery of the quantum network had not only won the war, but had also opened new doors for human science. "The Horizon Station scientists died trying to understand the universe," she began, her voice clear in the Martian air. "Today, because of their sacrifice, we understand it better than ever before. The Nerix have shared their crystal technology with us, and we have shared our innovations with them." In orbit above Mars, Hyun Woo Ba led a mixed squadron of human and Nerix pilots in a memorial flight. Their ships flew in perfect formation, drawing light patterns in the sky with their engines. Chief Engineer Do Hyun Ryu watched from the ground, standing next to a Nerix engineer. Together, they had already started working on combining their technologies in new ways. "Look at that," Do Hyun said, pointing to where the ship's trails crossed. "A year ago, we were trying to destroy each other. Now we're creating art together." Lieutenant Jinnah Han, who had learned to speak the Nerix language fluently, translated for the alien engineer. The Nerix made a sound like singing crystals, their way of showing joy. The ceremony reached its peak as Admiral Kim stepped up to speak. The crowd fell silent. Everyone knew he had lost the most in this war, and his words would shape humanity's path forward. "My daughter believed in learning," he said, his voice strong. "She believed in pushing boundaries. When the Nerix attacked Horizon Station, they thought they were stopping human progress. Instead, they pushed us to achieve things we never thought possible." He turned to face the Nerix representatives, their crystal-like forms shimmering in the sunlight. "We could have destroyed your civilization, he continued. But that would have betrayed everything Horizon Station stood for. Instead, we choose to learn from each other, to grow together. This memorial stands not just as a reminder of what we lost, but as a promise of what we can become. As he finished speaking, the Nerix performed their crystal song, and this time Jin-A translated it for everyone. From the depths of war, we found wisdom. From the ashes of conflict, we found friendship. From the darkness of space, we found light. Captain Park watched as human and Nerix children played together near the monument, their laughter mixing with the alien crystal songs. She touched the captain's bars on her uniform, remembering the battles that had led to this moment. "Was it worth it?" she asked quietly. Admiral Kim looked at his daughter's name one last time, then at the peaceful scene around him. She would have said yes. And now, finally, I agree with her. Above them, the combined fleet continued their dance among the stars, no longer enemies, but partners in the great adventure of space. Humanity had proved itself not just in war, but in peace, and that perhaps was the greatest victory of all.